Hey, what's up everybody? Eternal Fire here, and today we're going to be doing a complete Guardian Druid guide for the Shadowlands pre-patch 9.0.1. In this video, we will cover new and existing abilities in the Spellbook, stat priorities, talent builds, Essences and Azerite as they are still active in the pre-patch, and finally spell priorities or rotation. If you are here for a specific segment of the video, please check the description below for timestamps. But first, if you like this content, consider becoming a member of my channel by clicking the join button, aka it's Twitch subscribe for YouTubers. Any support is appreciated, and with that, let's get started. So starting off with the Spellbook, we're going to go through the Spellbook and we're going to break down some of the things so we understand what the Guardian Druid abilities are a little bit better before we go into the rest of the video. So first off, we have Bark Skin. It's on a 1 minute cooldown, reduces all the damage you take by 20% for 12 seconds, and you can use it while all kinds of incapacitated or stunned. So on a 1 minute cooldown, you're going to be using this very frequently. In the next, we have Bear Form. This is what you want to be in so you do not die while you're tanking. Cat Form makes you run faster. Cyclone makes you come out of, it's a CC, 6 second CC, but it makes you come out of Bear Form to use it. So there's not too many situations where we're going to be using its 6 second CC in PvE. PvP maybe, yes, but certainly I don't think too often in PvE. Dash, it makes you sprint in cat form. Entangling Roots, roots a target for 30 seconds. Damage can cancel the effect. Then we have Growl. Growl is going to be your taunt ability. So you taunt an enemy and they will attack you. Heart of the Wild, we're going to talk about in the talent book. Or in the talent book. In the talents, Hibernate. Forces an enemy to target to sleep for up to 40 seconds. Any damage will awaken the target. It's only available to use on Beast and Dragonkin. Iron Fur. This is your only and primary and only active mitigation. So it basically does not have a cooldown. It costs 40 rage and increases armor by X amount for 7 seconds. Multiple uses of this ability may overlap. So unlike Shield Block for Warriors, where it's a 13-second recharge or 14-second recharge, this only has a 0.5 second cooldown. So you can have multiple stacks of Iron Fur up at a time, and after the one stack depletes its 7 seconds, it'll go away and you'll have another stack still on if you've overlapped. But you want to keep this up 100% of the time. Iron Fur is going to reduce so much damage taken, and it is increased by the amount of agility that you have. So the amount of armor that you get from Iron Fur is increased by your agility. So just keep that in mind. Mangle is a single target ability, 5.2 second cooldown, or based on your haste. Mangle the target for physical damage and deals 20% additional damage against bleeding targets. So we will explain that a little bit further. Moonfire, it's just a dot that you put on your enemy. Does arcane damage over 16 seconds. So it's just basically a free increase to your DPS while you're fighting. Mount Form, it's just your mount form. Prowl, you go into stealth. Rebirth. Rebirth is your battle res. Returns the spirit to the body, restoring a dead target to life with 100% health and at least 20% mana. Castable in combat. For the Druid, for the Guardian Druid, it's an instant ability. It does cost 30 rage, and it's on a 10-minute cooldown, which is shared with the rest of your party. So I mean, this is immensely powerful. You're in a last boss in the dungeon. Your healer goes down, your best DPS goes down, and you can just instantly revive them in the middle of combat. So that's really huge. Just make sure that if 2 people are down, you look at the damage meter to make sure you're rezzing the person who's been doing more damage. Regrowth is a single target heal. You can heal yourself or your teammates. It does take you out of bear form, so be careful. Revive is just your out of combat revive, unlike Rebirth that you do it in combat. Revive is out of combat. Then we have Soothe. Soothe is a target dispelling all enrage effects. So if you have a target that has some sort of buff effect on them that's making them more powerful, you can use Soothe on a 10-second cooldown and take that away from them. Stampeding Roar. Stampeding Roar is great. When you want everybody to move a little bit faster, you pop that bad boy, and oh geez, where'd it go? For the next 8 seconds, you're going to run 60% faster with your party. So that's something you want to use on a regular basis, especially in dungeons. No reason to waste time getting to the next pack. Use Stampeding Roar and get there faster. Then you have Travel Form. You have Treant Form. You have Wrath, which is just a damaging cast, you won't really be using this, as it takes you out of bear form, and then your aquatic form. All your forms, make sure you hotkey those to your mouse or your keyboard somewhere, because there are going to be situations where you're just going to want to be in and out of them on a regular basis, okay? So you don't want to have to be looking for them or clicking for them. Moving to the Guardian tab, we're going to start with Berserk. It's on a 3-minute cooldown. Go Berserk for 15 seconds, reducing the cooldowns of Mangle, Thrash, Growl, and Frenzied Regen by 50%. And basically what this means is you're going to be able to use Mangle and Thrash more, generating more often during that 15-second window, dealing more damage and generating more rage, all while the cost of Iron Fur is also going to be reduced by 50%. So you're going to be able to use more active mitigation and deal more damage during this cooldown. So pretty cool cooldown. I'm glad it is back in our toolkit. Frenzied Regen is it costs 10 rage, and it's on a 31-second recharge, or based on the amount of haste that you have. Heals you for 32% of your health over 3 seconds, and you have 2 charges of it. So it's a really nice heal that you get fairly frequently. Incapacitating Roar incapacitates all enemies within 10 yards for 3 seconds. Damage will cancel the effect. So basically, if you're like fighting a trash pack with a caster or more, and they're all casting, you want to get it interrupted or just delayed, because they're going to cast it again, because it's not technically an interrupt, but you will interrupt their cast, if that makes sense. You can use this as an AoE, just incapacitation effect, to get a little bit more breathing room with the enemy casters. Maul. So this is if you don't need to be using rage on your active mitigation or frenzied regen, you can dump your rage. Like say you're about to cap on your rage, and you don't currently need to be spending rage on Iron Fur, you can use it on Maul. So Maul does high amount of damage, but it costs 40 rage. So this is your offensive rage dump. Rejuve is just a heal over time effect on yourself, but as you can see, it does take you out of bear form. Skull Bash is your interrupt. It's on a 15-second cooldown, and it will interrupt your target if you successfully interrupt out of that spell school for 4 seconds. Survival Instinct. This is your primary survivability cooldown, and it is on a 2.3-minute recharge with Visions of Perfection, or a just baseline 3-minute recharge. Then you have Swift Mend. Swift Mend is a heal that does not work by itself anymore. It consumes Regrowth, Wild Growth, or Rejuve to instantly heal an ally for a big amount, and that ally can also be yourself. The thing is again, it takes you out of bear form, and it can't be used on its own, so you already have to have a hot on yourself. So you would do Rejuve or Wild Growth, and then it makes it so you can activate this spell. So it's a very powerful heal, but you have to consume a hot that you already have on you. Moving down, we have Thrash. So strikes all nearby enemies, dealing bleed damage and additional bleed damage over 15 seconds. When applied from bear form, this effect can stack up to 3 times, and it generates rage. So basically, you have Mangle. Where is Mangle? Do you see Mangle? Because I don't. Mangle. Mangle generates 10 rage, and Thrash generates 5 rage. So these are your 2 rage generating abilities, unless you go with Galactic Guardian, which can make your Moonfire generate rage. But we will talk about that when we get to the talents. So Thrash and Mangle are your 2 rage generators, where Maul and Iron Fur are your rage spenders, along with Frenzied Regen, but Frenzied Regen is so cheap you barely notice. So this is your AoE ability. You're going to use this on cooldown along with Mangle. Moving over, we have Wild Charge, which is a charge you can have to an enemy, and that is a talent. We'll talk about that. Wild Growth is an AoE heal, but again, it takes you out of bear form. Gore is a passive, so Thrash, Swipe, Moonfire, and Maul have a 15% chance to reset the cooldown on Mangle and to cause it to generate an additional 4 damage. So whenever you get a Mangle proc, you want to use that, because you're going to generate the most rage that you can. So it'll happen passively, and when your Mangle procs, you want to prioritize using that ability. Infected Wounds, your Mangle and Maul will put Infected Wounds on the target, just slowing them for 12 seconds, it's just passive, it'll do it on its own. Lightning Reflexes, you gain dodge equal to 100% of your critical strike from gear. So like some of the other tanks that use weapons and it's parry, for the Guardian Druid, it's going to be dodge. And then our Mastery. Mastery increases your maximum health and healing received by whatever percentage based on your mastery, and also increases your attack power. Thick Hide just reduces all damage taken by 6%. Ursine Adept tells you what abilities you can use in bear form. And then Ysera's Gift is a talent, and we will talk about that. The first thing to point out with stats in the pre-patch is that secondary stats now have a diminishing return, meaning let's say you have 25 points of haste per percentage of haste, right? Once you get to 20%, now it is 35 haste to get to 21% haste, right? So the more haste you have after 20%, it now costs more haste per percentage point. So hence the diminishing return. As you get more, the value becomes more expensive. So you're probably going to see more even distribution on secondary stats. With that said, for the Guardian Druid, item level is going to be probably your best stat overall. So if it's an item level increase, it's probably going to be an upgrade. Except for your rings maybe that don't have armor on them. But armor, stamina, and agility. Armor is obviously your number one defensive ability. Agility increases the amount of armor you have on your iron fur, which is your physical active mitigation. And then more stamina is what your defense is against magic damage, since we don't have a spell reflect or anything. Next, you're going to go with versatility, because that increases your damage overall, and it reduces the damage that you take overall. So that means physical damage, magic damage, bleed damage, poison damage. Versatility is just going to lower the amount of damage that you take as a whole. Next, you're going to have mastery, and mastery increases your health, and it increases the healing you receive. And then you're going to have haste, which is going to just kind of help smooth out the rotation. And then lastly, you have crit. So again, it's item level, versatility, mastery, haste, and crit. So diving into the talents, first we have Brambles, Blood Frenzy, and Bristle Fur. Brambles is going to be your best DPS increase here. You absorb and reflect damage from each attack against you. And then while Barkskin is active, Brambles also does AoE damage to all nearby enemies for 1 second while Barkskin is active. So that's going to be a DPS increase for you, as well as it helps to mitigate some damage. Blood Frenzy, Thrash also generates 2 rage each time it deals damage. So you're just going to be, you're going to be using Thrash on cooldown, and it's just going to be generating more rage for you. And then Bristle Fur causes you to generate rage based on the amount of damage you take for 8 seconds. Now that's an instant ability, whereas this is passive. Blood Frenzy is passive. Bristle Fur is an instant ability with a 40-second cooldown. So it's going to be more situational, and basically it's going to give you a lot more survivability if you're taking massive amounts of damage. So if you're planning on taking massive amounts of damage and you need to get more rage for your iron furs, then this is going to be beneficial for you. So basically, if you're in a fight where you're taking heavy physical damage and you need to have more uptime, more stacks of iron fur, then you could take bristling fur. Otherwise, if you just want rage increase, you'd go with Blood Frenzy. And if you're not really struggling with rage, just go with Brambles, as it does increase damage. In the next tier, we have Wild Charge, and it buffs your sprint. Renewal is just a self-heal, which as a Guardian, we already have a pretty good, self-heal with frenzied regeneration. So Wild Charge gives your Guardian Druid a charge. You have a charge ability, and it also immobilizes them for 4 seconds. And then it also has nice benefits like, being able to leap in travel form, fly to an ally's position when you're not in any form. So it's just all around, it's good. It's got its advantages, hands down. So go with that talent. Next, we have Restoration Affinity. It gives you a passive heal over time effect, being Ysera's Gift, 3% of your maximum health every 5 seconds. If your health is full, it's going to heal one of your teammates. So it's just, especially when you're doing dungeons or raids, this is a nice thing to be able to have. If you're doing raids, you're really going to go with Feral Affinity, especially if you're going to be off tanking, where there are periods during the fight while you're not tanking. But I'm not really going to be getting into the cat weaving, because I don't really raid. I just focus primarily on dungeons. So yeah, Restoration Affinity. It gives you all these heals here. Rejuve, Swiftmend, Wild Growth, which are nice. And then you also get Ursul's Vortex. What Ursul's Vortex does is it basically, if you put it down and enemies run into it, and then they try to run out, it's going to suck them back into the middle one time, and then they're going to be slowed by 50%. So, and that lasts for 10 seconds. So it's a really good crowd control effect, and you can add that to your toolkit when you're doing dungeons. In the next tier, you have Heart of the Wild and Mass Entanglement. Mass Entanglement is a 30-second cooldown and roots all enemies within 15 yards in place for 30 seconds. Damage may interrupt the effect, so in a dungeon that could be beneficial for certain situations for sure. And then you also have Heart of the Wild, which is a 5-minute cooldown, which buffs your Restoration Affinity for 45 seconds, increasing the healing that you do with those restoration spells by 30%, mana cost reduced by 50%. So as we all know with tanks, if you try to use your healing abilities, you're going to be out of mana in about 5 seconds. With this, it's going to make that a little bit more sustainable. So, you know, there could definitely be certain situations where you could just help your healer out, and it's actually a really good, effective healing cooldown. In the next tier, we have Galactic Guardian and Incarnation Guardian of Ursoc. So Galactic Guardian just basically buffs your Moonfire, and you want to have that up on, you're going to have your Moonfire up on your target at all times. So your damage has a 5% chance to trigger from a free automatic Moonfire on that target. When this occurs, the next Moonfire you cast generates 8 rage and deals 300% increased direct damage. So this is going to give you an automatic just increase overall damage. So that's your greatest damage increase. And then Incarnation Guardian of Ursoc, it's on a 3-minute cooldown, an improved bear form that grants the benefit of Berserk, which is Berserk is go Berserk for 15 seconds, reducing the cooldown of Mangle, Thrash, Growl, and Frenzied Regen by 50%, and the cost of Iron Fur by 50%. So that is a really powerful cooldown. And so this just basically gives you that, in addition to causes Mangle, which is normally a single target ability, to hit up to 3 targets and increase maximum health by 30 seconds. Last 30 seconds, you may freely shapeshift and out of this form, and then you'll still have it when you're in bear form. So this is a really good survivability cooldown. It offers some DPS benefits. So this will be something that, you know, I'll be using definitely for certain fights or certain dungeons. But Galactic Guardian is going to give you overall a lot more, well, more DPS. It's going to be greater DPS increase. In the next tier, we're going to be going with Earth Warden. When you deal direct damage with Thrash, you gain a charge of Earth Warden, reducing the damage of the next auto attack you take by 30%. Earth Warden may have up to 3 charges. Then the other option here is really Survival of the Fittest, reduces the cooldowns of Barkskin and Survival Instincts by 33%. So this is just going to help, Earth Warden is going to help smooth out the damage that you take, just pretty much for every pull. Whereas Survival of the Fittest is reducing the cooldown of your two survival abilities, your survivability cooldowns. And so really the time that you would want to take Survival of the Fittest is if there's a fight, a boss fight specifically, where you have timed things that he does to you, where you want to have those up more often, right? So if you know every 45 seconds he does this ability to me, and if I take this Survival of the Fittest, I know that I can have it back up in time for the 3rd or the 4th one. So that is really a situation where you'd want to take Survival of the Fittest. Otherwise, Earth Warden just feels better. In the next tier, we have Rend and Tear, which is going to be our go-to for dungeons. Each stack of Thrash reduces the target's damage to you by 2% and increases your damage to them by 2%. So you can have a max of 3 stacks of Thrash on your target, so it can reduce the damage that your targets do to you by a total of 6% and increases your damage by 6% to the target with 3 stacks of Thrash. Then we also have Pulverize, which is a 45-second cooldown, and this is a very good talent, but it's a little more complicated to use versus just passively having Rend and Tear. A devastating blow that consumes 2 stacks of your Thrash on the target, dealing physical damage, and reduces the damage they deal to you by 35% for 10 seconds. So this effectively becomes a survivability cooldown. So you want to make sure that you have 2 stacks of Thrash on your enemy. And again, if you know you're looking at your DBM and you know you're about to get a big hit, you would use it before, right? So you would use this ability before you took that tank buster ability, and it would reduce the damage that he does to you for the next 10 seconds by 35%. So this is a really good cooldown. This effectively gives you another survivability cooldown. But again, Rend and Tear just overall passively is going to decrease the amount of damage that you're taking for every single pull. So for dungeons, this is a really good pick. Because it is still the pre-patch and Azerite Essences are still a thing, we are going to just quickly cover them. For your Azerite traits on your gear, you want to have 3 Twisted Claws and 3 Heart of Darkness on your outer rings primarily. So again, 3 Twisted Claws, 3 Heart of Darkness, or 3 Twisted Claws, 1 Heart of Darkness, and then you could do Layered Mane. Is very powerful to have. And then I personally like Burst of Savagery. So that's what you want to have. The primary thing though is get 3 Twisted Claws. And then for essences, you want to have your major be Vision of Perfection. And then you can do for minors Aegis of the Deep, Conflict of Strife, Sphere of Suppression, or Nullification Dynamo, which is really nice against magic damage because we don't have any magic mitigation. So last but not least, we're going to be moving on to the spell priority or the rotation. So first of all, you have Mangle, single target, and it generates 10 rage. You have Thrash, AoE, and it generates 5 rage. So you want to use these 2 abilities on cooldown during any of your rotations because that's where you're going to be generating your rage from. Swipe is your AoE filler and your single target filler, really. So whenever you don't have anything else to press, you're going to be using Swipe until you can use these again when they come off cooldown. Moonfire is your dot, and you want to keep that up on your target at all times. It's just going to increase the damage that you deal. And then Maul is your offensive rage dump. So if you are getting close to capping on rage, or you don't need to spend any rage currently on Iron Fur, then you can use this for the added DPS. So that is your offensive rage dump, whereas your defensive rage dump is your Iron Fur. And you want to keep your Iron Fur up as close to, if not 100% of the time as possible. Bark Skin is your 1 minute cooldown survival ability, and you want to use that frequently. Survival Instincts is your real oh crap button, and it'll help you get through the hard times. And you have 2 charges of that. Then, like we talked about, you have Berserk, your DPS cooldown, and your helps you survive more as well, and then your Frenzied Regen. And those are the primary abilities that you're going to be using for your rotation. So for AoE, you would charge in, and you could do a Moonfire and charge together. So that would look like that. So now you have your dot up, and you could also do that with single target. And for AoE, you want to start with Thrash here, right? Thrash, get all your targets, generate that aggro on everybody. And if it's just a single target that you're going after, you would open up and you would charge and you would do Mangle. And again, you can add your Moonfire with your charge. So that's how you want to open. And then basically, I mean, it is the simplest rotation for all of the tanks. Just Mangle and Thrash on cooldown. Swipe is your filler. Keep Moonfire up. And then offensive rage dump on Maul if you don't need the rage for Iron Fur or Frenzied Regen. And then you have your survivability cooldowns. And it does take some getting used to because the Druid as a whole has a lot of abilities to use. But when it comes to the actual rotation, whether it's single target or AoE, it really doesn't change. And it's just super simple to use. So if you have any questions, please hit me up in the comment section. I would love to be able to help you further. Maybe I explained something poorly and you just want some clarification, whatever. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And again, if you really like my content, I'd love if you consider becoming a member of my channel. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on the next one.